The Valere Dominion had conquered 17 star systems in 300 years. Their warships were beautiful things made of living crystal that glowed with inner light. Each one was powered by captured black holes, and each one could destroy a moon with a single shot. The Valori believed they were the greatest warriors in the galaxy, and for a very long time. Nobody could prove them wrong. So when humans arrived at the Galactic Assembly asking to join, the Valori thought it was a joke. Admiral Yuki Tanaka stood at the center of the Great Hall. Around her, delegates from 12 different species watched with curious eyes. Some had scales. Some had feathers. Some had no bodies at all and existed only as light. But all of them shared the same expression when they looked at the human woman. It was the look someone gives a child who has wandered into a room full of adults. Humanity requests membership in the Galactic Assembly, Tanaka said. Her voice was calm and steady. We come in peace. We wish to trade, to learn, and to grow alongside our galactic neighbors. Whispers spread through the hall. The Nexari delegate, a being made of flowing liquid metal, leaned toward the Kethvari ambassador. They only discovered faster-than-light travel 40 years ago, it said. They are infants. The Kethvari ambassador nodded its massive head. Brave infants, perhaps. Or foolish ones. At the center of the Valori delegation, Arkan Kethval watched the human with 4 cold eyes. He was ancient even by Valori's standards, and he had seen many young species rise and fall. Most of them learned their place quickly. The ones who did not learn were taught. Show us your flagship, Kethval said. His voice echoed through the hall like thunder. Let us see what humanity brings to our assembly. Admiral Tanaka nodded. She pressed a button on her wrist device, and a holographic image appeared above the assembly floor. The hall fell silent. Then the laughter began. The UES, Perseverance, floated in the hologram. And it was the ugliest ship anyone had ever seen. Where Valere vessels gleamed like jewels, the Perseverance looked like it had been built in a junkyard. Its hull was covered in visible welding marks and exposed plating. Pipes and cables ran along its surface like veins. Chemical thrusters stuck out at odd angles beside the experimental jump drive that had carried humanity to the stars. It was 800 meters of brutal, graceless metal. It had no elegance. It had no beauty. It looked like someone had taken 100 different machines, crushed them together, and somehow made them fly. The Valori delegation laughed the loudest. Kethval's 4 eyes crinkled with amusement as he studied the human ship. What do you call this vessel? He asked. The Perseverance, Tanaka replied. Her voice remained steady. Fitting name for something that looks like it should not exist. Kethval rose from his seat, his crystalline robes catching the light. The Valori have a different name for it. We call it the coffin, or laughter filled the hall. Even species who usually stayed neutral could not hide their smiles. Tanaka said nothing. She simply watched and waited. Kethval descended from his platform and walked toward the human admiral. He towered over her by more than 2 meters, and his shadow fell across her face like a dark cloud. Go home, little human, he said. Return when your species has evolved past throwing rocks. The galaxy has no place for primitives flying scrap metal. Tanaka met his gaze without flinching. We did not come here to be mocked, Archon. Then you should not have come at all. Kethval turned his back on her. The Valori reject humanity's application. This discussion is over. 3 days later, Valori Third Fleet arrived at Kepler-44b. It was a small human colony on the edge of explored space. 200,000 people lived there, farming the alien soil and building homes under a purple sky. They had no warships to protect them. They had no weapons that could scratch a Valori cruiser. They were completely defenseless. The Valori did not come to conquer. They came to teach a lesson. Burn the orbital stations, Commander Silthera ordered from the bridge of the Eternal Dominion. Leave the planet intact. We want survivors to spread the message. Her tactical officer hesitated. Commander, they are not fighting back. They are not even trying to run. Of course not. What could they possibly do against us? The answer came 30 seconds later. A ship dropped out of hyperspace directly between the Valori fleet and the colony. It was alone. It was small compared to the crystal dreadnoughts surrounding it. and it was the ugliest thing Silthara had ever seen. The Perseverance had arrived, on the bridge of the human flagship. Admiral Tanaka studied the enemy formation. 12 warships, each one capable of destroying her vessel 100 times over. The odds were impossible, but Tanaka had not risen to the rank of admiral by accepting impossible odds. "Open a channel," she said. Her communications officer nodded. "Channel open, Admiral. Valori Fleet. This is Admiral Yuki Tanaka of the United Earth ship, Perseverance. You are in violation of sovereign human space. Withdraw immediately, or we will be forced to defend our people." Silence stretched across the void. Then Silthara's voice crackled through the speakers, filled with disbelief and amusement. "One ship. You bring one ship against the Valori Third Fleet?" The commander laughed. "Admiral, I admire your courage, but courage alone will not save you. Stand aside, and we will let you live long enough to watch your colony burn." Tanaka leaned back in her command chair. Around her, her crew worked at their stations with quiet efficiency. They knew what was coming. They had trained for this moment their entire lives. "I have a different suggestion, Commander," Tanaka said. "Turn your ships around. Go home. Tell your Archon that humanity is not as weak as he believes." "And if we refuse?" Admiral Tanaka smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a predator who had been waiting for exactly this moment. "Then I will teach you something the universe taught humanity a long time ago. And what is that? That survival is not about being the strongest." Tanaka stood and faced the view screen, where 12 crystal warships filled the stars like deadly jewels. "It is about being too stubborn to die." She turned to her tactical officer. "All hands to battle stations. Load the railguns. Bring the Prometheus engine to ready status." She paused and her smile grew wider. "Let us show them what humans are made of." Commander Silthara stood at the center of her bridge and watched the human ship with growing annoyance. The Perseverance hung in space before her fleet, its running lights blinking slowly like a heartbeat. It had not moved since it arrived. It had not fired. It simply waited, as if daring the Valor to make the first move. "What are they doing?" Silthar asked. Her sensor officer studied his console with confusion in his 4 eyes. "They appear to be broadcasting, Commander. Audio transmission on all open channels." "Broadcasting what?" "Music, Commander. Something called classical. Our translation systems identify it as a piece by a human composer named Beethoven." Silthara listened. Strange sounds filled her bridge. Strings and horns creating patterns that were almost beautiful in their primitive simplicity. She found it odd that creatures facing certain death would spend their final moments playing music. "Scan their weapons," she ordered. "Scanning now." The tactical officer worked his console, then let out a small laugh. "Commander, their weapons are projectile-based. Chemical propellant. They fire metal slugs using explosive powder." "Explosive powder?" Silthara could not believe what she was hearing. "They brought gunpowder weapons against graviton lances." "It appears so, Commander." The bridge crew exchanged looks of disbelief. The Valori had abandoned chemical weapons centuries ago. Such things were relics of a primitive age, useful for nothing except museum displays. The idea that anyone would bring them into battle against modern warships was laughable. "One ship against 12, Silthara mused, flying metal instead of crystal, armed with rocks and fire instead of gravity and light. They are either very brave or very stupid." "Perhaps both, Commander," her first officer suggested. Silthara nodded slowly. She felt a small twinge of respect for the human admiral. It took courage to face impossible odds, but courage alone could not stop a graviton lance. "Target the human vessel," she ordered. "Forward batteries only. Let us see how long their bravery lasts." 3 Valori cruisers moved into position. Their crystalline hulls pulsed with energy as graviton lances charged. These weapons could twist metal like paper. They could tear ships apart at the molecular level. One shot would be enough to destroy the Perseverance completely. "Fire," Silthara commanded. 3 beams of twisted gravity streaked across the void. They struck the human ship dead center, exactly where the bridge should be. Energy crackled across the Perseverance's hull. The metal glowed white-hot. Silthara leaned forward. Waiting for the explosion, it never came. When the energy cleared, the Perseverance remained. Its hull was scarred and blackened. Smoke vented from a dozen points along its surface. But the ship was intact. The running lights still blinked. The music still played. Possible, the tactical officer whispered. Silthara's 4 eyes widened. Increased power. All forward batteries. Fire again. This time 6 ships opened fire. 6 graviton lances concentrated on a single point, pouring enough energy into the human vessel to crack a small moon. The attack lasted 11 seconds. When it ended, the Valerie bridge crew stared at their sensors in disbelief. The Perseverance had not exploded. It had not broken apart. It had not even lost power. Their hull, the sensor officer said, his voice trembling. It is made of layered alloys. Each layer absorbs a different type of energy. The graviton lances are being dispersed across the entire surface instead of penetrating to the core. That is not possible, Silthara insisted. No material can withstand that much force. Air material can, Commander. It appears they designed their ships specifically to survive our weapons. Before Silthara could respond, Admiral Tanaka's voice crackled across all Valerie channels. It was calm and steady, as if she were discussing the weather instead of fighting for her life. You build your ships to conquer, Commander. You make them beautiful because you have never needed them to be anything else. But we build our ships to endure. Humanity learned long ago that the universe wants to kill us. Solar radiation, asteroid impacts, ice ages, plagues, the vacuum of space itself. Everything that exists has tried to destroy us at some point. The Perseverance began to move, slowly at first, then faster. It was not retreating. It was advancing. We did not survive by being the strongest, Tanaka continued. We survived by being too stubborn to die. Every time the universe knocked us down, we got back up. Every time something tried to end us, we found a way to keep going. That is what humanity does, Commander. We endure. Silthara watched the human ship approach with growing unease. All ships, concentrate fire. Destroy that vessel now. Entire Valori 3rd Fleet opened fire. Graviton lances. Plasma cannons. Antimatter torpedoes. Every weapon they had rained down on the Perseverance in a storm of light and death. The human ship took every hit. Its hull buckled and bent. Entire sections went dark. Fires burned along its surface, quickly snuffed out by the vacuum of space. It looked like it should be dead 100 times over, but it kept coming. Admiral, the tactical officer said, his voice now filled with something that might have been fear. The human ship is returning fire. Silthara almost laughed. With what? Their primitive slug throwers? Yes, Commander. And each slug is carrying something. Some kind of resonance disruptor tuned to our shield frequencies. They studied our technology, the first officer realized. They know how our shields work. On the view screen, the Perseverance continued its advance. Its railguns fired in steady rhythm, sending metal slugs across the void at incredible speed. Each impact was small. Each impact was insignificant, but there were thousands of them. Shield status on the Radiant Fury, Silthara demanded. Degrading, Commander. Slowly, but steadily. They are not trying to break through our shields with force. They are eroding them like water wearing down stone. Silthara understood now. The humans were not fighting to win quickly. They were fighting to win, eventually. Their ugly ship was a weapon of patience, designed to absorb punishment and keep firing until their enemy finally broke. This is madness, she whispered. No one fights like this, Commander, the sensor officer interrupted. New contacts at the system edge. Silthara felt her blood run cold. How many? 10, 20, 50? Thigh? The officer paused. Still counting, Commander. The human fleet had arrived. Silthara watched the view screen as more and more ships appeared from hyperspace. Each one was as ugly as the Perseverance. Each one looked like it had been built from scraps and held together by determination, alone. And each one was advancing. Admiral Tanaka's voice returned to the channel, and this time, Silthera could hear the smile in her words. Did you think we would send our flagship alone, Commander? We are stubborn, not stupid. Now you face the full strength of the United Earth Navy. There was a pause. I suggest you start worrying, for the first time in her long career. Commander Silthera of the Eternal. Dominion felt something she had never experienced before. Fear VAE Lori tactical doctrine was built on a simple principle. Strike fast. Strike hard. Win decisively. Their ships were designed to end battles quickly, overwhelming enemies with superior firepower before they could mount any real defense. For 300 years, this approach had never failed them, but the humans refused to play by Lori rules. Commander Silthera watched her tactical display with growing frustration. The human fleet had spread across the system like a swarm of angry insects. 53 ships, each one as ugly and stubborn as the Perseverance. They did not form elegant battle lines. They did not engage in the precise, coordinated strikes that the Valerie expected from a proper military force. They swarmed. They harassed. They refused to stay still long enough to be destroyed. Target the vessel at coordinate 773, Silthera ordered. Her weapons officer locked on and fired. The graviton lance streaked across space toward a battered human cruiser. The ship moved, not gracefully, but effectively. The beam clipped its rear section, tearing away armor plating and a communications array. The cruiser spun wildly from the impact, and then it stabilized. Its engines fired. It rejoined the fight. How? Silthera demanded. That hit should have destroyed their propulsion systems entirely. Her engineer studied the sensor data with disbelief. Commander, the human vessels appear to have multiple redundant systems. When we destroyed their primary engines, backup engines activated. They have 5 separate power sources throughout each ship. We would need to destroy all of them to actually disable one vessel. That is absurd engineering. It is wasteful, inefficient. Perhaps, Commander, but it is effective. Across the battlefield, the human fleet continued its relentless assault. Each ship carried the same railgun systems as the Perseverance, and each ship was firing constantly. The slugs were small. The damage was minor. But it was adding up. Sarver checked the status of her fleet. The Radiant Fury had lost 40% of its shield capacity. The Crystalline Vengeance was venting atmosphere from 3 hull breaches. The Sacred Light had lost its port weapons array entirely, and the humans had not lost a single ship. They are not fighting to win, Silthera realized aloud. They are fighting to survive. They absorb our attacks and keep coming. They trade damage for time, knowing that eventually we will run out of energy before they run out of ships. Her first officer nodded grimly. It is like trying to kill water, Commander. Every time we strike, it simply flows around our attacks and fills the space again. On the Perseverance, Admiral Tanaka monitored the battle with calm satisfaction. Her ship had taken tremendous punishment in the opening hours of the engagement. Entire sections were sealed off, too damaged to use. 37 of her crew were dead, and another 100 were wounded. The medical bay was overflowing, but the ship was still fighting. Damage report, she requested. Her executive officer, Commander Chen, pulled up the data. We have lost forward railgun batteries 2 and 4. Hull integrity is at 62%. Engineering reports the jump drive is offline, but sublight engines are functional. Life support is stable. Ammunition status. Railgun slugs at 73%. Resonance disruptors fully loaded. Prometheus engine standing by. Oh, nodded. Hold the Prometheus engine in reserve. We are not ready to play that card yet. Admiral, permission to speak freely? Granted. Chen lowered his voice. Some of the crew are asking why we have not used our main weapon yet. The Prometheus engine could end this battle in minutes. Why are we holding back? Tanaka turned to face her executive officer. Because winning is not enough, Commander? We need them to understand. Every hour this battle continues, every ship they fail to destroy teaches them a lesson. The Valor believe power is everything. We are teaching them that endurance matters more than power. She returned her attention to the tactical display. Besides, I want to see how much they can take before they break. Sif on cue. A message arrived from the Valori flagship. Silthara's face appeared on the view screen, and Tanaka noted the stress lines around her 4 eyes. The Valori commander was tired, frustrated, uncertain. Good, Admiral Tanaka, Silthara said. This battle serves no purpose. You cannot defeat us. Your ships are damaged. Your weapons are inferior. Accept the inevitable and surrender. We will spare your lives. Tanaka smiled. Commander, look at your fleet. Really look at it. Silthara glanced at her tactical display. Her ships were battered, damaged. Some were barely holding together. The battle had lasted 6 hours, and the Valori had not destroyed a single human vessel. Your shields are failing, Tanaka continued. Your weapons are overheating. Your crews are exhausted. And my fleet is still here. Still fighting. Still refusing to die. She leaned forward. You asked me to surrender? I have a counteroffer. You surrender to us. Silthara's eyes widened in outrage. You dare? One primitive species against the might of the Valori Dominion. We will crush you. You have been trying to crush us for 6 hours, Commander. We are still here. Tanaka spread her hands. You see, this is what humans do. We survive. When our planet froze, we built fires and made clothes from animal skins. When disease swept through our cities, we invented medicine. When our own weapons threatened to destroy us, we found ways to live with them. The universe has been trying to kill us since we first crawled out of the ocean, and we have never stopped fighting back. She gestured at the battlefield beyond the view screen. These ships, you mock. They were built by people who learned that survival is not about being the biggest or the strongest. It is about being the most stubborn. We designed every system with failure in mind. We assumed everything would go wrong and built our ships to keep fighting anyway. You cannot break us, Commander, because we have already been broken 1,000 times and put ourselves back together. Silthara stared at the human admiral for a long moment. Something in her expression shifted. Not defeat, not yet, but doubt. This is not over, she said finally. No, Tanaka agreed. It is not. But before you decide your next move, Commander, there is something you should see. Tanaka nodded to her communications officer, who transmitted a new set of coordinates to the Valori fleet. Silthara looked at her tactical display and felt her heart stopped at the edge of the system. More human ships were arriving. Not 50, not 100. 200 vessels dropped out of hyperspace and began moving toward the battle. Each one was as ugly and resilient as the others. Each one represented hours of additional fighting that the Valori could not afford. Those are reinforcements, Tanaka explained. We have more coming. How many ships can the Valori Dominion afford to lose today, Commander? How many crews are you willing to sacrifice against ships that simply refuse to die? Silthara had no answer. She only had fear. The Valori Third Fleet was dying. Not quickly. Not dramatically. But steadily, inevitably, like a wounded animal bleeding out from 1,000 small cuts. Commander Silthara watched her tactical display and saw the truth that she had been avoiding for hours. Her fleet was losing. Not because the humans were stronger, not because their weapons were superior, but because the humans simply would not stop. Shield status on the Eternal Dominion, she asked. 23%, Commander. Regeneration systems are offline. We cannot restore capacity during combat. Silthara nodded slowly. Her flagship, the pride of the Valori Third Fleet, was crippled. Its beautiful crystalline hull was scarred with impact marks from thousands of railgun slugs. Each hit had been small. Each hit had been insignificant. But together, they had torn through shields that were supposed to be invincible. The humans call this their doctrine of overwhelming persistence, her tactical officer said. I found references in their communication logs. They designed their entire military around the assumption that they would always face stronger enemies. Instead of trying to match superior firepower, they focused on survival. Their goal is to outlast any opponent. It is working, Silthara admitted. Across the battlefield, the human fleet continued its relentless assault. 250 ships now, with more arriving every hour. They moved in loose formations, supporting each other without ever clustering enough to make easy targets. When one ship took damage, others would cover it while it made repairs. When systems failed, backup systems took over. It was like fighting smoke. Every time the Valori struck, the humans simply reformed around the blow and kept coming. Admiral Tanaka watched from the bridge of the Perseverance with quiet satisfaction. Her ship was a wreck. Half its systems were offline. The crew had been working in rotating shifts for 9 hours, grabbing sleep wherever they could find it. The medical bay had long since overflowed into the corridors, but they were winning. Admiral, incoming transmission from Captain Rodriguez on the Defiance. Tanaka nodded. Put him through. Captain Miguel Rodriguez appeared on the view screen. His face was covered in soot and dried blood from a wound on his forehead, but his eyes were bright with energy. Admiral, we have completed our analysis of Valaware shield frequencies. We can now predict their modulation patterns with 93% accuracy. If we coordinate our fire, we can punch through their shields in concentrated bursts. How long would it take to disable a dreadnought? With focused fire from 12 ships, about 4 minutes. Tanaka smiled. Begin targeting the Radiant Fury. It is the most damaged of their capital ships. Let us show them what happens when we stop playing defense. 12 human ships broke from their harassment patterns and formed a loose wedge. Their railguns fell silent for a moment as targeting computers synchronized. Then, all at once, they opened fire. The Radiant Fury's shields had been eroded over hours of constant bombardment. Now hit by concentrated fire calibrated to its exact frequencies, those shields collapsed entirely. Railgun slugs tore through crystal hull like bullets through glass. Secondary explosions rippled across the great ship as power systems overloaded. In less than 4 minutes, the Radiant Fury went dark. Silthera watched in horror as one of her dreadnoughts died. Not destroyed, she realized. Disabled. The humans had not aimed for the reactor or life support. They had targeted engines, weapons, and communications. The ship was dead in space, but her crew was still alive. They are not trying to kill us, her first officer said. They are trying to humiliate us. No, Silthera understood now. They are being practical. Dead Valori cannot tell stories. Defeated Valori can. They want survivors to spread word of what happened here. Another dreadnought, the Crystalline Vengeance, came under concentrated fire. Its shields failed in 3 minutes. It joined the Radiant Fury as a lifeless hulk drifting in the void. Commander, we must withdraw, the first officer urged. We cannot win this battle. Every minute we stay, we lose more ships. Silthera knew he was right. The Valori had never retreated from battle. In 300 years of conquest, they had never faced an enemy they could not overwhelm through superior firepower. But humans did not fight with firepower. They fought with patience. All ships, Silthera announced over the fleet channel. Prepare to withdraw. But before she could give the order, Admiral Tanaka's voice filled the bridge. Not yet, Commander. Before you go, there is one more thing I want you to see. The Perseverance began to move. Its battered hull groaned as damaged systems strained to comply with commands. The ship positioned itself directly in front of the Eternal Dominion. So close that Silthera could see every scar, every burn mark, every welding seam on its ugly surface. You called this ship a coffin, Tanaka said. You mocked it because it was not beautiful, because it did not shine like your crystal vessels, because it looked like something built by primitives. Panels along the Perseverance's hull began to retract. Something deep inside the ship started to glow. The ship is 40 years old, Commander. It was the first vessel humanity ever built with a jump drive. It has survived more battles than you can imagine. It has been repaired so many times that less than 30% of its original material remains. We did not keep it in service because it was our best ship. We kept it because it represents what humanity truly is. The glow intensified. Silthera's sensors screamed warnings as energy readings spiked beyond anything the Valori had ever recorded. We are survivors, Tanaka continued. We are stubborn. We are relentless. And we never, ever give up. The Prometheus engine fired. A beam of pure fusion energy lanced across space, but not toward the Valori fleet. It struck an asteroid 6 kilometers wide that had been drifting near the battlefield. The asteroid did not crack. It did not shatter. It simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there. The next moment, it was vapor. Silence filled both fleets. Tanaka's voice returned, calm and measured. That was our oldest ship, Commander. The Perseverance. 40 years old, held together by spare parts and determination. Imagine what our newest ships carry. Silthera stared at the space where the asteroid had been. 6 kilometers of rock, gone in an instant. And the humans had done it with their oldest, most primitive vessel. Now, Tanaka said, you may go. Tell your Archon what happened here. Tell him that humanity is not as weak as he believed. Tell him that the next time the Valori threaten our colonies, we will not settle for disabling your fleet. She paused, and her voice hardened. We will destroy it. Silthera did not argue. She did not threaten. She simply turned to her helmsman and gave the order that no Valori commander had ever given before. Full retreat. The remains of the Valori Third Fleet limped away from Kepler 44 to B, leaving behind for disabled dreadnoughts and the scattered debris of their broken pride. On the bridge of the Perseverance, Admiral Tanaka watched them go. Around her, her crew erupted in exhausted cheers. We won, Commander Chen said, disbelief in his voice. We actually won. We survived, Tanaka corrected. That is what humans do. Now comes the hard part. What is the hard part? Tanaka smiled grimly. Making sure they never forget it, the Galactic Assembly fell silent when Admiral Yuki Tanaka walked through its doors 3 weeks after the Battle of Kepler-442b. She looked different from her first visit. Older, somehow, though only 21 days had passed. There were new lines around her eyes and a weariness in her step that spoke of sleepless nights and difficult decisions. But her back was straight, and her gaze was steady. And when she took her place at the center of the Great Hall, every delegate in attendance felt the weight of her presence. The Valori delegation did not laugh this time. Archon Kethval sat rigid in his seat, his 4 eyes fixed on the human woman who had done what no enemy had ever accomplished. She had defeated a Valori fleet, not destroyed it, something worse. She had humiliated it. And then she had let the survivors go home to tell the story. Every spacefaring species in the galaxy had heard that story by now. They knew about the ugly ships that refused to die. They knew about the weapons that eroded shields instead of breaking them. They knew about the Prometheus engine and the asteroid that had vanished in an instant. Most importantly, they knew that the Valori were not invincible. Honored delegates Tanaka began. 3 weeks ago, I stood in this hall and asked for humanity's admission to the Galactic Assembly. I was rejected. I was mocked. I was told that humanity was too primitive, too weak, too insignificant to matter. She paused, letting her gaze travel across the assembled species. 3 days after that rejection, the Valori attacked one of our colonies. They came with 12 warships, including 4 dreadnoughts. They expected an easy victory, a lesson to teach the newcomers their place. Tanaka smiled slightly. It was not a warm expression. They received a lesson, but not the one they intended. She pressed a button on her wrist device, and holographic footage began playing above the assembly floor. The gathered delegates watched as the Perseverance faced down the Valori fleet alone. They watched as it absorbed attacks that should have destroyed it 10 times over. They watched as the human reinforcements arrived and slowly, methodically, took apart the most powerful fleet the Valori had ever assembled. When the footage ended, Tanaka spoke again. We did not come to the Galactic Assembly seeking war. We came seeking partnership. We came seeking trade and cooperation and the chance to learn from species who have traveled the stars far longer than we have. We did not ask for this fight. Her voice hardened. But when the fight came, we did not run. We did not surrender. We did not beg for mercy. We stood our ground, and we showed the galaxy what humans are made of. She turned to face the Valori delegation directly. I want to be clear about something. We could have destroyed those ships. Every single one of them. The Prometheus engine that vaporized that asteroid could have done the same to your dreadnoughts. But we chose not to. We disabled your vessels and saved your crews because we wanted them to go home. We wanted them to tell stories. We wanted every species in this galaxy to understand something important about humanity. Tanaka stepped forward, and the assembled delegates leaned in to hear her next words. We do not want to be your enemies. We do not seek conquest or domination, but we will not be victims. We will not be targets for those who think our youth makes us weak. We have survived everything the universe has thrown at us, and we will survive anything this galaxy throws at us too. She spread her hands. Now, I am here to ask again for humanity's admission to the Galactic Assembly, not as supplicants, not as primitives seeking the approval of our betters, but as equals who have earned their place among the stars. Silence hung over the assembly hall. Then the Nexari delegate rose from its seat. Its liquid metal body shifted and flowed as it spoke. The Nexari Collective supports humanity's application. Any species that can endure what they endured has proven their worth. One by one. Other delegates stood. The Kethvari Empire supports humanity's application. Luminari Confederacy supports humanity's application. The Silthrani Hive supports humanity's application. Species after species declared their support. Some had been impressed by human resilience. Others had been frightened by human capability. All of them recognized that the balance of power in the galaxy had shifted, and that humanity was no longer a primitive species to be dismissed. Finally, all eyes turned to the Valori delegation. Archon Kethvel rose slowly from his seat. He was ancient, even by the standards of his long-lived species, and he had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations. But he had never seen anything quite like what the humans had accomplished. The Valore, he said, and his voice was heavy with something that might have been respect, abstained from this vote. It was not support, but it was not opposition either. From the Valor that was practically surrender, the vote passed unanimously. Humanity was admitted to the Galactic Assembly. After the session ended, Archon Kethval approached Admiral Tanaka. They stood together in a quiet corner of the Great Hall, two leaders who had been enemies and might become something else entirely.
Oh.
Your ships, Kethval said. They are not your true weapon, are they? Tanaka met his gaze. Our ships are tools. Metal and fire and stubbornness made physical. They are not what makes humanity dangerous. Then what does? Tanaka considered the question for a long moment before answering. Do you know what the universe has done to humanity, Archon? Ice ages that nearly wiped us out. Plagues that killed half our population. Asteroid impacts. Volcanic eruptions. Wars that threatened to end everything we had built. And through all of it, we survived. Not because we were the strongest, not because we were the smartest, but because we refused to accept defeat. She looked up at the alien towering above her. The universe keeps telling us we should not exist, that we are too fragile, too vulnerable, too primitive to survive. And every single day, we wake up and prove it wrong. That is what makes humanity dangerous, Archon. Not our weapons, or our ships, or our technology, our spite. Kethval stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he began to laugh. It was not mocking laughter like before. It was something else. Something closer to genuine amusement. Spite, he repeated. You survive out of spite. We thrive out of spite, Tanaka corrected. We conquered our planet out of spite. We reached the stars out of spite. And if you had destroyed us at Kepler-4 for 2b, our children would have rebuilt out of spite and come looking for revenge. She smiled, and this time it was almost friendly. That is why I let your fleet go, Archon. Not mercy. Not strategy. I wanted the Valori to understand exactly what kind of enemy they were making. Killing us just makes us angry. And humans are very creative when we are angry. Kethval looked at the human woman before him. She was small, fragile. Her lifespan was barely a blink compared to his. By every measure, the Valori used to judge species, Humanity should have been insignificant, but she had defeated his finest fleet with ships. Held together by determination and armed with weaponry his people had abandoned centuries ago. She had done it through sheer relentless stubbornness, and she had done it while broadcasting music into the void. "I think," Kethville said slowly, "that I may have underestimated your species, Admiral." "Most people do," Tanaka replied. "We prefer it that way. Makes the lesson more memorable." She turned and walked away, leaving the ancient Archon alone with his thoughts. Outside the assembly hall, the stars burned cold and bright against the darkness of space. Among them, human ships patrolled the borders of their young civilization. Ugly and scarred and utterly unstoppable, they had been called primitives. They had been called relics. They had been called coffins flying through space, but they had proven something that every species in the galaxy would remember for generations too. Come, humanity does not give up. Humanity does not surrender. Humanity endures.